August 4, 1892, a brutal crime shocks a quiet town. A wealthy father and his wife, hacked to death with an axe. No forced entry. No signs of robbery. Just one suspect. Lizzie Borden. Did she really commit one of the most infamous murders in American history? Or was she the perfect scapegoat? The truth has been buried for over a century. But what really happened inside the Borden house that day? Lizzie Borden, the axe murders that shocked America, Part 1. August 4, 1892, a morning like any other in Fall River, Massachusetts. But inside the Borden household, something unimaginable had happened. Andrew Borden, a wealthy yet frugal businessman, was found slumped on the living room couch, his face unrecognizable, struck at least 10 times with an axe. Upstairs, his wife Abby lay in a pool of blood, hit 19 times with the same weapon. No forced entry. No missing valuables. This wasn't a robbery. It was personal. Suspicion quickly fell on Andrew's 32-year-old daughter, Lizzie Borden. She claimed she was in the barn at the time of the murders, but her story kept changing. The question remains, was Lizzie a cold-blooded killer? Or an innocent woman caught in a storm of suspicion? Lizzie Borden, the axe murders that shocked America, Part 2. Before she became America's most infamous murder suspect, Lizzie Borden was just a girl growing up in Fall River, Massachusetts. But behind the doors of the Borden home, life was far from perfect. Her father, Andrew Borden, was a wealthy businessman, but despite his fortune, he was known for being incredibly frugal. The Borden home lacked modern luxuries, no gas lighting, no indoor plumbing, despite the family's wealth. Andrew valued money over comfort, and tension filled the household. Lizzie's biological mother, Sarah Borden, died when Lizzie was just 2 years old. Her father remarried Abby Durfee Gray, a woman Lizzie and her older sister Emma never fully accepted. They refused to call her mother and believed she was only after their father's wealth. Resentment grew even stronger when Andrew gifted property to Abby's family while keeping his own daughters on a tight budget. Arguments erupted. Suspicion festered. And just days before the murders, the entire household had fallen ill. Was it just coincidence? Or was something sinister already brewing inside the Borden home? Lizzie Borden, the axe murders that shocked America, Part 3. Thursday, August 4, 1892, a morning of routine in the Borden household, until it became a scene of unimaginable horror. After breakfast, Andrew Borden and his guest, John Morse, sat in the sitting room, chatting for nearly an hour. By 8:48 a.m., Morse left for errands, and Andrew went out for his usual morning walk. Inside the house, Lizzie, the maid Bridget Maggie Sullivan, and Andrew's wife, Abby Borden, remained. Sometime between 9 o'clock and 10:30 a.m., Abby climbed the stairs to the guest room, a task Lizzie and her sister usually handled. She would never come back down. The forensic investigation revealed that Abby was facing her killer when the first strike came. A hatchet sliced into the side of her head, just above the ear. She staggered, turned, and collapsed face first onto the hardwood floor. Before she could scream, the killer struck again. 17 brutal blows to the back of her head, the blade crushing her skull. Blood pooled beneath her lifeless body. An hour later, Andrew Borden returned home. His key failed to unlock the door. He knocked. From inside, Bridget struggled with the jammed lock, muttering a curse. From the top of the stairs, Lizzie laughed. That laugh would become one of the most haunting details of the case. At that moment, Abby's mutilated body lay just feet away, hidden from view. Lizzie greeted her father and told him Abby had gone out. He settled onto the sitting room couch for a nap. Moments later, he was attacked. The first blow split his eye in half, a sign that he had been asleep. 10 or 11 more strikes followed, each delivered with unrelenting force. The final image was gruesome. Andrew's face was unrecognizable, his skull shattered, his blood still warm. At 11:10 a.m., a scream echoed through the house. Lizzie's voice rang out. "Maggie, come quick. Father's dead. Somebody came in and killed him." Dr. Bowen, the family physician, rushed in from across the street. His grim pronouncement, both were dead. 2 murders. A locked house. No sign of forced entry. Only one question remained: who could have done it? Lizzie Borden, the axe murders that shocked America, Part 4. Lizzie Borden was the prime suspect in the brutal murders of her father, Andrew Borden, and stepmother, Abby Borden. However, as police began their investigation, inconsistencies in her story, gaps in evidence, and unusual behavior led to lingering doubts about her guilt, and opened the door to alternative theories about what really happened on that fateful morning. The initial investigation and suspicious findings. From the very beginning, the police investigation was flawed. Lizzie's statements to authorities were inconsistent, often contradicting earlier claims. She first told officers that she had heard a groan, a scraping noise, or a distress call before entering the house. However, just 2 hours later, she changed her story, insisting she had heard nothing unusual before discovering her father's body. When asked where Abby was, Lizzie claimed she had received a note summoning her to visit a sick friend. Yet, no such note was ever found, and no one ever came forward to confirm its existence. Strangely, rather than appearing distressed, Lizzie remained calm and composed throughout questioning, something several officers found unsettling. The police were also criticized for their lack of diligence in collecting physical evidence. They searched Lizzie's room, but only briefly, later admitting they did not conduct a thorough examination because she claimed she was feeling unwell. In the basement of the Borden house, investigators found 2 hatchets, 2 axes, and a hatchet head with a broken handle. The broken-handled hatchet was suspected to be the murder weapon because the break in the handle appeared fresh, and there were signs that someone had deliberately covered it in ash and dust, perhaps to make it seem like it had been there for some time. However, none of these tools were ever tested for blood evidence, and they were not removed from the crime scene for further examination. Adding to the suspicion, the police conducted toxicology tests on the family's milk supply and the stomach contents of the victims, both of which had been removed from the bodies during an autopsy in the Borden home. This was done because a mysterious illness had affected the entire household in the days leading up to the murders. Some suspected that Lizzie had attempted to poison her father and stepmother before resorting to more violent means. However, the tests revealed no traces of poison. The next morning, Lizzie's friend Alice Russell entered the kitchen and found Lizzie tearing up and burning a dress in the fireplace. Lizzie explained that it was stained with paint, but this raised major suspicions. Was she destroying the blood-stained dress she had been wearing during the murders? The police never determined whether the burned dress had any connection to the crime. By August 6, 2 days after the murders, Lizzie was officially a suspect. The case against her was circumstantial, but growing stronger by the day. Theories about the killer. While Lizzie remained the primary suspect, theories began to emerge about other potential perpetrators. Theory 1. Lizzie killed in a fugue state. Some believe Lizzie may have killed her father and stepmother while in a dissociative fugue state, a rare psychological condition where a person commits an act of violence and later has no recollection of it. However, there was no known history of mental illness in Lizzie's past, making this theory speculative at best. Theory 2. A victim of abuse. Another chilling theory suggests that Lizzie was being physically and sexually abused by her father, Andrew Borden. If true, this could explain the rage and overkill in the attacks. Though there is no definitive proof of abuse, it was a topic rarely discussed in the 19th century, and forensic evidence collection at the time was primitive compared to modern standards. Theory 3. A deadly affair. Mystery author Evan Hunter theorized that Lizzie may have been caught in an intimate relationship with the family maid, Bridget Sullivan. According to this theory, Abby walked in on them, reacted with horror, and was subsequently killed. When Andrew returned home, Lizzie confessed, but when he responded similarly, she killed him too. This theory is based purely on speculation, as there is no solid evidence of Lizzie's involvement in a romantic relationship. Theory 4. Bridget Sullivan knew more than she said. Bridget Sullivan was ordered to clean the windows on the day of the murders, a task she reportedly resented, as it was an extremely hot summer day. Some believe she snapped and killed the Bordens herself. Adding to suspicions, Bridget allegedly made a deathbed confession to her sister, stating that she changed her testimony in court to protect Lizzie. However, this claim was never verified. Theory 5. The uncle's perfect alibi. John Morse, Lizzie's maternal uncle, had stayed at the Borden house the night before the murders. He had an alibi that was so detailed and specific that police found it almost suspicious. Could he have orchestrated the murders, leaving Lizzie to take the blame? Theory 6. A secret son's revenge. Some speculated that Andrew Borden had an illegitimate son, William Borden, who had attempted to extort money from him. When Andrew refused, William allegedly murdered him and Abby in a fit of rage. However, there was never any credible proof that William was actually Andrew's son. Theory 7. The sisters' secret plan. Lizzie's older sister, Emma Borden, was in another town at the time of the murders. But some believe she traveled back unnoticed, killed her parents, and returned before news broke. Could she have orchestrated the perfect crime and left Lizzie to take the fall? The mystery endures. More than 130 years later, the truth remains buried in history. Lizzie was acquitted, but the shadows of doubt never disappeared. Was she really the killer? Or did someone else get away with murder? Lizzie Borden, The Axe Murders That Shocked America, Part 5. The Trial of Lizzie Borden. The trial of Lizzie Borden was one of the most sensational court cases in American history. Taking place nearly a year after the brutal murders of Andrew and Abby Borden, it captivated the public and the press, with people across the country divided on whether Lizzie was a cold-blooded killer or the victim of a flawed investigation. From the start, the case was riddled with inconsistencies, missing evidence, and legal maneuvering that ultimately led to an acquittal, despite many still believing Lizzie was guilty. The inquest and Lizzie's arrest. Lizzie first appeared at an inquest hearing on August 8, 1892. Under Massachusetts law, an inquest was required to be held in private, meaning her request to have her family attorney present was denied. During this questioning, her erratic behavior and contradictory statements raised further suspicions. Lizzie, who had been prescribed morphine to calm her nerves, often refused to answer questions, even ones that may have helped her case. She changed her account of the morning in question multiple times, at one point claiming she had been reading a magazine in the kitchen when Andrew arrived home, and at another time stating she was either ironing in the dining room or coming down the stairs. The district attorney was aggressive and confrontational, and Lizzie's inability to provide consistent answers only made her look more suspicious. On August 11th, she was officially arrested and jailed for the murders. Her inquest testimony, considered crucial to modern debates over her guilt, was later ruled inadmissible at her trial, meaning jurors never heard how drastically her story had changed. A grand jury convened on November 7, 1892, and after weeks of reviewing evidence, Lizzie was indicted on December 2 for the murders of her father and stepmother. The trial begins. Lizzie's trial began on June 5, 1893, in New Bedford, Massachusetts, nearly 10 months after the murders. The case drew massive public attention, with newspaper reporters filling the courtroom and crowds gathering outside to hear updates. The prosecution was led by Hosea M. Knowlton and future U.S. Supreme Court Justice William H. Moody, while the defense team included Andrew V. Jennings, Melvin O. Adams, and former Massachusetts Governor George D. Robinson. A second axe murder raises doubts. Just 5 days before the trial started, a shocking event shook Fall River. A woman named Bertha Manchester was murdered in a gruesome axe attack. The crime bore striking similarities to the Borden murders, leading some to believe that a serial killer might be responsible. However, police later arrested José Correa de Mello, a Portuguese immigrant, for Manchester's murder. He was convicted in 1894, and authorities confirmed that he had not been in Fall River at the time of the Borden killings. Despite this, the coincidence planted a seed of doubt in the jurors' minds. The evidence against Lizzie. One of the most critical pieces of evidence was the hatchet head found in the basement. The prosecution claimed it was the murder weapon, arguing that the handle had been removed and disposed of because it would have been covered in blood. However, their case suffered a major blow when police officers contradicted each other. One claimed that a hatchet handle was found nearby, while another said no such handle existed. Additionally, no bloody clothing was ever found. The strongest testimony against Lizzie came from Alice Russell, a family friend, who stated that on August 8, she witnessed Lizzie burning a dress in the kitchen stove. Lizzie claimed the dress had been ruined by paint stains, but prosecutors suggested that it was the outfit she had worn during the murders. Surprisingly, Lizzie's defense team never challenged Russell's testimony. The disputed timeline. The prosecution also argued that Lizzie was in the house at the time of the murders. Bridget Sullivan, the maid, testified that she had gone upstairs around 10:58 a.m., leaving Lizzie and Andrew downstairs. Lizzie, however, claimed that at that time, she had gone into the barn for 20 to 30 minutes. Defense witness Hyman Lubinsky, an ice delivery man, supported her claim, stating he saw Lizzie leaving the barn at 11:03 a.m. Another witness, Charles Gardner, confirmed this timeline. By 11:10 a.m., Lizzie called Bridget downstairs, saying that Andrew had been murdered and ordering her not to enter the room. Instead, she sent Bridget to fetch a doctor. A dramatic moment in court. One of the most shocking moments in the trial came when the victims' skulls were presented as evidence. Both Andrew and Abby's heads had been removed during the autopsy, and when the prosecution revealed the skulls in court, Lizzie fainted. Some saw this as evidence of her guilt, while others believed it was simply a natural reaction to the gruesome display. The prussic acid incident is excluded. One of the most damning pieces of evidence against Lizzie was excluded from the trial. The day before the murders, a druggist testified that Lizzie had tried to purchase prussic acid, hydrogen cyanide, allegedly to clean a sealskin cloak. The judge ruled that this evidence was too far removed from the crime to be relevant, significantly weakening the prosecution's case. The judge's instructions favor the defense. As the trial neared its conclusion, the presiding judge, Associate Justice Justin Dewey, gave a lengthy summary to the jury. His statement was heavily in favor of the defense, making it clear that there was not enough direct evidence to convict Lizzie beyond a reasonable doubt. Dewey's appointment as a judge had been made by former Governor George Robinson, who was now Lizzie's defense attorney. Some have speculated that this connection played a role in his favorable stance toward the defense. Lizzie is acquitted. After just 90 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty. Upon hearing the decision, Lizzie reportedly collapsed in relief, later telling reporters she was the happiest woman in the world. The aftermath. Though acquitted, Lizzie remained a pariah in Fall River. Many residents still believed she was guilty, and she and her sister Emma eventually moved out of the family home to a new house called Maplecroft. The Borden trial set a precedent for high-profile, media-driven criminal cases, later being compared to trials like those of Bruno Hauptmann, Lindbergh baby kidnapping, Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, Cold War espionage, and O.J. Simpson, 1995 double murder trial. Despite being found not guilty, Lizzie Borden's name would forever be linked to one of the most infamous unsolved murder cases in American history. Lizzie Borden, The Axe Murders That Shocked America, Part 6. Later Life and Death. After her acquittal, Lizzie and her sister Emma moved into a large, modern home in the affluent Hill neighborhood of Fall River. Lizzie, now preferring to be called Lizbeth A. Borden, named the house Maplecroft. The sisters enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle, employing live-in maids, a housekeeper, and a coachman. Despite their wealth and new surroundings, Lizzie remained a social outcast in Fall River. The stigma of the trial and persistent suspicions about her involvement in the murders followed her for the rest of her life. Although Lizzie and Emma inherited their father's estate, a significant settlement was paid to Abby Borden's family to resolve their legal claims. This financial agreement ensured Lizzie and Emma could continue living comfortably, but it did little to restore Lizzie's reputation. Lizzie made headlines again in 1897 when she was accused of shoplifting in Providence, Rhode Island. While the incident did not lead to legal consequences, it reinforced the public's negative perception of her. In 1905, Emma abruptly moved out of Maplecroft following an argument with Lizzie, reportedly over a party Lizzie had hosted for actress Nance O'Neill. The sisters never spoke again. Lizzie suffered from health issues in her later years, undergoing gallbladder surgery. Her condition declined, and she died of pneumonia on June 1, 1927, at the age of 66. Her funeral was a private affair, and few people attended. 9 days later, Emma Borden also passed away from chronic nephritis in New Hampshire, having moved away years earlier to escape the lingering infamy surrounding the case. At the time of her death, Lizzie was a wealthy woman, with an estate valued at over $250,000, equivalent to over $6 million today. She owned multiple properties, office buildings, 2 cars, and an extensive jewelry collection. In her will, Lizzie left $30,000 to the Fall River Animal Rescue League, demonstrating her lifelong love for animals. She also allocated $500 for the maintenance of her father's grave. Several close friends and relatives received substantial inheritances, with amounts ranging from $1,000 to $6,000. Lizzie and Emma Borden were buried side by side in the family plot at Oak Grove Cemetery in Fall River. Although she was legally acquitted, Lizzie Borden's name remains forever linked to one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. Summary of the Lizzie Borden case. The Lizzie Borden case remains one of the most notorious murder mysteries in American history. On August 4, 1892, Andrew and Abby Borden were brutally murdered in their home in Fall River, Massachusetts, struck multiple times with an axe. Suspicion quickly fell on Andrew's 32-year-old daughter, Lizzie, who had a complicated relationship with her stepmother and had been in the house at the time of the murders. The investigation was riddled with inconsistencies. Lizzie gave contradictory statements about her whereabouts that morning, and a crucial piece of evidence, a hatchet found in the basement, was never definitively linked to the crime. Adding to the suspicion, a friend testified that Lizzie burned a dress shortly after the murders, though her defense claimed it was simply stained with paint. Despite the circumstantial evidence, Lizzie's high-profile trial in 1893 ended in acquittal, as the jury found the evidence insufficient to convict her beyond a reasonable doubt. The case garnered nationwide attention and became one of the first major media-driven criminal trials in the U.S. Though Lizzie lived out the rest of her life as a wealthy woman, she remained ostracized by her community, with many still convinced she had gotten away with murder. The question remains, did Lizzie Borden really kill her father and stepmother, or was she the victim of a flawed investigation? What do you think? And that wraps up the chilling story of Lizzie Borden, one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. What do you think? Was Lizzie truly guilty, or did she get away with murder? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We appreciate your support, and thanks for watching.